The restaurant glowed with golden light, the kind that made crystal glasses sparkle like tiny jewels. Laughter floated above the clinking of silverware, blending with the soft hum of live piano music in the corner. I sat beside Michael, my hand folded neatly in my lap, watching him beam as he told yet another story about his promotion. His voice carried that blend of confidence and charm that always seemed to draw people in. Around the table, I saw smiles, nods, raised glasses. Everyone seemed dazzled by him. Michael leaned closer, slipping his arm behind my chair, as if to put me on display too. "I couldn't have done it without Stacy," he announced proudly, his grin as polished as the silverware in front of us. The table erupted in agreement, voices overlapping in admiration. I smiled, because that's what was expected of me, though inside there was a flicker. That quiet whisper of doubt I had shoved deep down. It sat there like a secret I carried alone, folded tight and tucked away. Tonight, though, I promised myself I'd ignore it. The air was thick with the smell of roasted garlic and aged wine, a richness that clung to the room. Waiters glided between tables, their trays balanced with grace, refilling glasses and laying out plates as if choreographed. I tried to soak it all in: the glow of the chandeliers, the warmth of laughter, the hum of a night that felt celebratory. Straightening my back, I reminded myself I belonged here, in this glow. Whatever suspicions haunted me before, tonight, I wanted to believe Michael's charm wasn't just a mask. I wanted to trust him. I needed to. I lifted my glass when the others did, the chilled rim brushing my lips as I joined their toast. The wine tasted smooth, a little sweet at first, then sharp as it settled on my tongue. Across the table, one of Michael's colleagues leaned forward, laughing loudly at something he said. I watched Michael soak it all in, the attention, the admiration. He thrived on it. I couldn't help but notice how easily he played the part of the golden man, the one who had it all. And for a moment, I let myself believe maybe that was true. As the conversation flowed, my gaze drifted around the room. Couples leaned in close over flickering candles. Waiters carried plates that smelled of seared steak and truffle, and the clinking of glasses created a rhythm all its own. I tried to memorize the feeling, to press it into memory like a photograph. The warmth of the night, the easy laughter, the illusion of stability. It felt safe. It felt like happiness should feel. And yet, beneath that comfort, a knot in my chest refused to unravel. Michael's hand brushed mine under the table, and I forced myself to squeeze it gently, pretending the gesture grounded me. He smiled, flashing the same confidence he'd worn all evening. I returned it with my own, but mine felt different. Stretched, thin, like a mask I wore to match his. I told myself not to overthink it, not to let old suspicions steal this night from me. I wanted so badly to trust the man sitting beside me. Maybe if I just kept smiling, I could convince myself I already did. The waiter placed a plate in front of me, tender lamb resting on a bed of creamy potatoes, steam rising like a whisper of comfort. I thanked him softly, though my attention was pulled back to the table's energy. Michael was in his element, raising his glass again, making everyone laugh with another one of his perfectly timed remarks. I watched him, the way his eyes sparkled under the golden lights, and I wondered if maybe I was the one being too guarded. Maybe love required letting go of suspicion, at least for one night. I reached for my fork, trying to steady my thoughts with something ordinary. The flavors burst as I took a bite. Savory, rich, almost grounding. Around me, voices overlapped in cheerful noise. Old friends sharing inside jokes, colleagues trading stories about work. I joined in, laughed when I was supposed to, nodded when expected. It was a performance I knew well, one I played alongside Michael, like we were two actors on the same stage. For everyone else, we looked flawless. And part of me wished that was real. As dessert menus appeared and more bottles of wine were opened, I leaned back in my chair, soaking in the glow of the evening. For a fleeting moment, I let myself exhale, telling my heart it was safe to believe again. Maybe the night could be exactly what it seemed, a celebration, nothing more. I didn't know then that the illusion was seconds away from cracking, that one small vibration against polished wood would change everything I thought I knew about Michael. The laughter was still rippling around the table when I heard it, that sharp, familiar buzz against the polished wood. Michael's phone lit up, its glow slicing through the dim candlelight. He reached for it casually, as if it were nothing, but I was right beside him. My eyes caught the screen before he tilted it away. Just one line. One line that made my breath hitch in my throat. "Good night, love. Too bad you're not here with me." For a second, I felt my chest tighten so fiercely it was like someone had stolen all the air from the room. I forced my lips into a smile, nodding at whatever joke someone across the table had just made. My hand didn't shake, though my heart pounded so loudly I was afraid others might hear it. That single message replayed in my mind like a cruel echo, each word burning hotter than the last. The clinking glasses around me suddenly sounded distant, as if I were underwater. Michael slid the phone back into his pocket without a thought, still wearing that easy grin. Meanwhile, I sipped my wine slowly, using the glass to hide my expression. On the surface, I was composed, laughing at the right moments, keeping my posture steady. But inside, something shifted. A quiet storm gathered, fierce and certain. I memorized everything, the sender's name, the exact words, the way his eyes never even flickered with guilt. In that moment, the seed of my revenge was planted, and I knew I'd let it grow. I let my eyes drift across the table, pretending to be engaged in the conversation. But inside, I was replaying the message like a song stuck on repeat. "Good night, love." Who was she? Where was she? The sweetness of those words wasn't meant for me, and that knowledge stung sharper than any insult. I glanced at Michael's hand as it gestured confidently in the air, as if nothing in his world was out of place. And in that moment, I realized he truly believed I would never know. I excused myself for a moment, slipping away to the ladies' room, my heels clicking softly against the marble floor. Inside the mirror's reflection, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. My lipstick was flawless, my hair pinned neatly, my dress hugging me just right, yet my eyes carried the weight of betrayal. I steadied my breathing, pressing cold water to my wrists as if I could wash away the fire beneath my skin. I wouldn't give in to tears, not here, not tonight. When I returned, I sat down as though nothing had happened. My laughter was softer now, my voice controlled, but no one seemed to notice the difference. Michael carried on, thriving under the spotlight of admiration, completely blind to the storm brewing inches away from him. And I decided then, I wouldn't confront him here. No raised voices, no scene, no chaos. That would be too easy for him. No. I'd wait, I'd plan, and when the time was right, the truth would unravel on my terms. The rest of the evening blurred, though I played my part flawlessly. I smiled when Michael touched my hand. I laughed when his colleagues praised him, and I raised my glass when the next toast circled the table. To anyone watching, we were the perfect couple, locked in our golden glow. But inside, I was taking notes, every detail etched into memory. The exact curve of his smirk, the time the message came through, the ease with which he hid it from the room. I studied him like a stranger that night, peeling back layers I had once trusted. His charm now looked rehearsed, his laughter too polished, his pride nothing more than a shield. How many nights had I ignored signs like this? How many whispers had I silenced just to keep the illusion intact? The thought burned, but it also sharpened something in me, a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't powerless. I wasn't broken. I was just beginning to wake up. As coffee was served and the night drew to its polite close, I slipped my coat over my shoulders, leaning into Michael's arm as if nothing had changed. But in my mind, the path ahead had already shifted. I wasn't going to confront him with anger. I wasn't going to crumble into tears. Instead, I would wait. I would gather, and I would strike when the stage was mine. The performance he loved so much was about to turn against him, and he'd never see it coming. The morning after that dinner, Michael showered while I sat at the kitchen table, cradling a mug of coffee I barely tasted. Steam curled into the air, but my thoughts were colder, sharper. When I heard the water running upstairs, I moved quietly, almost on instinct, toward his phone left charging on the counter. My pulse hammered as I unlocked it with ease. The same password he once told me proudly I'd never forget. And there it was. A string of messages, each one a dagger dressed in sweetness, confirming everything that text at dinner had already screamed. Her name glowed across the screen, paired with words I had once believed were mine alone. Promises of stolen nights, whispered complaints about me, even his ridiculous excuses for not being with her. My hands didn't shake, though. I saved every screenshot with the calm precision of someone who knew exactly what needed to be done. I wasn't the woman who would scream and throw dishes. No. I would be the woman who built a case, quietly and thoroughly, until his own lies crushed him. When Michael came downstairs, towel around his neck, flashing me that easy grin, I slid his phone back into place and smiled right along with him. He kissed my cheek, oblivious, while my mind raced ahead. Already, I was thinking about the dinner I'd host, the guest list, the timing. He would walk straight into it believing it was his celebration, his moment of glory. And that's what would make it perfect. Because nothing cuts deeper than betrayal exposed under the same spotlight he adored so much. The days that followed felt like walking through a play I no longer believed in. Michael went on with his routines, work calls, gym visits, late nights spent catching up. I played the devoted wife, smiling in the right moments, asking the right questions, slipping into bed beside him as if nothing had changed. But inside, I was collecting pieces of a puzzle. Every message, every detail, I stored carefully, building the story he thought he had buried. Each new discovery wasn't just proof, it was fuel. I knew better than to confront him alone. Anger behind closed doors would only give him the chance to twist, to deny, to gaslight me into questioning myself. No, if Michael had thrived on image and performance, then his downfall had to happen on the same stage. That thought gave me clarity, even peace, as I began planning. I made lists, drafted invitations, and chose the perfect night. The kind of night where friends, family, and colleagues would all gather, unaware they were about to watch a curtain fall. In quiet moments, I wondered why I wasn't crying. Shouldn't betrayal break me into pieces? But instead, I felt something steadier, stronger, like steel forming in fire. The pain was there, yes, but it had transformed into resolve. Maybe it was years of giving, years of forgiving small things I shouldn't have. Or maybe I'd simply had enough. Whatever the reason, I wasn't crumbling this time. I was building. And Michael had no idea that every smile I gave him was just another brick in the trap I was setting. When the invitations were sent, Michael lit up like a child on Christmas morning. He wrapped his arms around me, kissed my forehead, and thanked me for always supporting his career. I almost laughed at the irony, but instead I hugged him back, whispering that he deserved every bit of this celebration. He never questioned it. Not once. To him, I was the doting wife, the woman who would never dare betray his trust. And that blind confidence was exactly what made him so easy to fool. I planned every detail with care, the menu, the wine, the seating chart. I made sure his parents would sit close, that his colleagues would all be in view, that the atmosphere would feel warm, inviting, safe. The kind of setting where masks slip, where truth lands harder because no one is prepared for it. While I ordered flowers and arranged table settings, I could almost see it already. The shock, the whispers, the silence that would follow once I revealed everything. The thought alone steadied me more than any prayer could. On the surface, life carried on untouched. Michael strutted through the days, proud of his promotion, oblivious to the storm brewing under his own roof. And I carried myself like a woman in love, cooking his favorite meals, laughing at his stories, touching his arm in public. To him, it was proof of loyalty. To me, it was camouflage. Every smile I gave him was a step closer to the moment when the truth would finally strip him bare. And that night was coming sooner than he could ever imagine. The night of the dinner arrived, and my home buzzed with voices, the air carrying the rich scent of roasted meats and clinking glasses. Michael stood at the center of it all, greeting his parents, shaking hands with his colleagues, flashing that familiar grin that always won him admiration. I moved through the room with practiced grace, pouring wine, offering smiles, making sure everyone felt comfortable. To them, I was the proud wife hosting a celebration of her husband's success. To me, I was setting the stage for his fall. I studied Michael as he charmed the room, every gesture polished, every laugh just loud enough to pull attention. He loved being adored, and tonight was no different. He didn't notice how closely I watched him, or how steady my smile was despite the storm I was hiding. My heart didn't race like I thought it would. Instead, I felt calm, almost cold, like an actress waiting for her cue. And when the moment came, I'd know it. I had rehearsed it in my mind 100 times. As the last plates were cleared and the laughter mellowed into softer conversations, I stood, a glass of wine in hand. The chatter faded almost naturally, as if the room sensed a toast was about to be made. Michael looked up at me with pride, expecting I'd say something sweet, something about him and his hard work. And I did smile. I did raise my glass, but my words would not be the ones he was waiting for. This was the beginning of my reveal, and I was ready. I raised my glass higher, letting my voice carry just enough to reach every corner of the room. Michael always says honesty is the foundation of success, I began, smiling warmly as though I were honoring him. The words made his chest puff with pride, and I saw him glance around, soaking in the admiration. Then I continued, my tone steady, deliberate. So tonight, let's honor him with his own words. I could feel the shift in the air, the way conversations stilled, eyes turning fully toward me. With a quiet click of the remote, the first image appeared on the screen I'd prepared. The screenshot of the message from that night at the restaurant. "Good night, love. Too bad you're not here with me." Gasps rippled instantly through the room, forks frozen in midair, wine glasses lowered slowly to the table. Michael's smile faltered, his hand gripping the edge of his chair. His parents stared, wide-eyed, while his colleagues leaned toward each other in hushed disbelief. The silence that followed was heavier than any shout could have been. I let the moment stretch, then added softly, "While he was here toasting with us, someone else was waiting for him to come to bed." My eyes never left Michael's, watching the color drain from his face, the mask he loved so much slipping away in front of everyone who mattered to him. The sting of betrayal, the years of quiet suspicion, all of it condensed into this one moment. And it was mine to command. I placed the papers on the table in front of him, crisp, final, undeniable. Michael's hand hovered above the divorce papers, his lips parting as though he might protest, but no words came. The silence of the room pressed down on him, leaving him stripped of excuses, stripped of control. His colleagues whispered in disbelief. His mother's eyes brimmed with tears, and his father shook his head slowly, as if he no longer recognized the man sitting at the table. Michael's empire of charm was crumbling in real time, and I didn't need to raise my voice to bring it down. I eased back into my chair, lifting my glass with deliberate calm. The wine tasted smooth, almost sweet, as I let the silence linger. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't tremble. I felt steady, anchored, as if all the years of doubt had led to this exact moment of clarity. Michael stared at me, his face twisted between rage and desperation, but I didn't flinch. I had already won. The truth was out, and it was no longer mine to carry. It was his burden now. I set my glass down gently, folding my hands in my lap as if the matter were nothing more than dinner conversation. "To honesty," I said softly, my eyes meeting those of everyone at the table. A few guests raised their glasses hesitantly. Others simply stared. But the message was clear. The performance was over. Michael sat in silence, his world collapsing in front of an audience he'd once cherished. And I, at last, felt the weight lift from my shoulders, knowing this was only the beginning of his unraveling. The night ended without ceremony. Guests slipped out quietly, some avoiding eye contact, others whispering their condolences to me under their breath. Michael stood frozen in the dining room, the divorce papers still on the table like a scarlet letter, too heavy for him to touch. I didn't wait for him to recover. I gathered the empty glasses, my movements calm, deliberate, as though nothing extraordinary had happened. Inside, though, I felt lighter than I had in years, as if the chains around me had finally fallen. The days that followed were crueler to him than anything I could have planned. His colleagues distanced themselves, whispers spreading faster than wildfire through the office. His parents stopped answering his calls. Friends who once admired him no longer returned his messages. And the woman he thought was waiting for him? She vanished the moment the truth became public, leaving him alone in the wreckage he had created. Every corner of his carefully built reputation had been scorched, and he had no one left to blame but himself. I, on the other hand, found strength in the silence. I met with my lawyer, signed papers with a steady hand, and began to picture a life where my worth wasn't measured by the shadow of a man who betrayed me. Each signature, each legal step, felt like a victory I never knew I needed. The woman who had once ignored her instincts was gone. In her place stood someone unshaken, someone who knew the cost of betrayal, but also the taste of freedom. And that freedom was only just beginning to bloom. Court dates came and went, each one another brick removed from the house Michael thought he'd built around me. I walked into those rooms with my head high, dressed in quiet elegance, never needing to raise my voice. My lawyer spoke for me, but my silence carried its own weight. Michael sat across the table, smaller somehow, his once confident posture reduced to slumped shoulders and a gaze that never met mine. I didn't revel in his ruin, but I won't lie, watching him unravel gave me a satisfaction I'd earned. Outside the courthouse, I'd sometimes pause and feel the sun on my face, letting it wash over me like a benediction. Friends reached out constantly, women who whispered that I'd done what they never could, that I had shown them strength they longed to find in themselves. Their words mattered more than Michael's downfall. For once, I wasn't defined by his actions. I was defined by my choice, to stand, to reveal, to leave. That realization steadied me in ways I never imagined. At home, I stripped away the remnants of our life together piece by piece. His clothes packed neatly in boxes, his photographs taken down from the walls, his cologne replaced by the scent of fresh flowers I bought for myself. Each change felt symbolic, like clearing space not just in my house, but in my heart. And every empty corner I created became an opening for something new, something that belonged solely to me. For the first time in years, I felt like I was finally living my own story. The final day in court was almost anticlimactic. Papers were signed, stamps pressed, and just like that, our marriage was no longer a binding chain around my life. I walked out of the courthouse into the crisp air, the city buzzing around me, and felt something I hadn't in years. Absolute freedom. My phone vibrated with messages, friends congratulating me, cheering for my strength, reminding me I wasn't alone. I smiled as I read them, my steps light, my shoulders unburdened. I thought back to that night at the restaurant, to the glow of chandeliers, the laughter, the illusion of perfection. One message had shattered it all. But instead of destroying me, it had rebuilt me. That betrayal had forced me to stop living in the shadow of a man who never deserved my trust. It had given me clarity, a clean slate, and the fire to claim my own life. Michael may have lost his empire, but I had gained something far more valuable: myself. As I walked down the courthouse steps, I caught my reflection in a glass door. The woman staring back at me was radiant, unshaken, alive. I tucked my phone back into my bag, lifted my chin, and kept walking, each step echoing with certainty. The chapter with Michael was closed. My story was mine again. And as I moved forward into the unknown, I carried with me one undeniable truth. One text exposed his lie, and one dinner ended his empire.